Welcome, Connecting Directors audience. We've got a great show today. We've got the group from LendingUSA here. So I'm not going to take any of their time. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about LendingUSA.
So thanks, Ryan. Let me say a big thank you to you first for giving us the opportunity to speak with the Connecting Directors Network. And firstly, my name's Nathan, and I'm joined today by Elaine Valdez, who is one of our relationship managers for the funeral industry. I'm the business development director for LendingUSA. And as many of you know, we recently got the NFDA's endorsement exclusively to be their at-need lender of choice. And if I may, I'm just going to go through a little bit about our background and how we reached to this point, Ryan.
Yeah.
So LendingUSA was founded in 2014, mostly because of a need that had arisen as a result of the last financial crisis. A lot of the lenders and banks that operate nationally in this country just weren't serving the population like they were previously. And so we really saw that there was an opportunity to build a product that was good for Americans, that was honest, that was straightforward, and that was easy to use. Our management team has over 30 years of financing experience. And actually our president, Mike Testa, who spoke at the NFDA earlier this year, he was the founder and president of the medical financing giant Care Credit.
Okay.
So we've got a lot of experience in the space, and we grew at a rapid pace pretty much since we launched in 2014, and we operate in a variety of markets, most notably where Americans have a genuine need for services that have an impact on their lives. Last year we operated around $2 billion in application volume, just to give you an idea of our size. And we also, in 2016, began exploring the funeral industry and started working with a few funeral directors so that we could understand the challenges that they face with payments, and to see how our benefits could really solve a problem that the funeral industry and funeral directors have. That's kind of how we ended up here, and we targeted and spoke to the NFDA at length, and realized that with their partnership and with their assistance, we can really create a product that is sensitive for families, but also really helps the funeral directors serve the people in need that they need to.
Excellent. So, I mean, for our audience watching, what are some of the benefits of financing or kind of the financing part of a funeral? So funeral financing, what are some of the upside of there for funeral directors?
So great question, Ryan. As Nathan mentioned, my name is Elaine, and I'm one of the funeral industry relationship managers at LendingUSA. I came from a 14-year career in the funeral industry, and the reason I joined LendingUSA was because I believed in the vision and what their goal is, and the mission is to offer an option to the funeral directors to assist their families. So the benefits of the funeral financing, it enables funeral directors to offer an easy, low monthly payment option to families. And also it's no risk to the funeral home. So when we pay out the funeral homes, the family doesn't pay back the loan, there's no recourse to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We also guarantee payment to the funeral directors within 3 days after the loan documents are signed. Then we deposit the money straight into the bank account for the funeral director. Okay. The other option is, we've noticed that the funeral homes that have used our program, they've been able to increase their average sales costs, and it empowers the directors to arrange the service that the family desires rather than the one that they can only afford.
Yeah, and if I may, that's one of the biggest benefits that I think people were giving back to me as feedback when I was at the NFDA conference a few weeks ago. I had a number of our clients come to me and say, look, we were able to do high dollar services that we weren't able to do before. We were able to do burials when family could only afford a cremation. And the fact that our loans go up to $35,000 really means that with a complete variance of burial costs and funeral service costs across the country, we can really help any family, whatever their service need is or whatever they desire, really.
That's fantastic.
I talked to a funeral director just most recently, and I think that sometimes what people don't realize is when you're planning a funeral, there could be 2 parts to it. There's the mortuary part, and then there's the cemetery part. So I just connected with one of our directors the other day that we're in partnership with, and he was able to tell us that he helped a widow plan her husband's service. So he was able to help her put on the cemetery fees with the contract, and finance her for one large amount. And it's one of the largest funerals that he's ever been able to do for someone. So in his long career, it was a $25,000 funeral.
Wow.
So it was a big deal, and he helped his business and help, most importantly, the family at the same time.
Wow, that's fantastic. So being that you've been in the funeral profession for a while, the funeral directors are kind of tech adverse, right? So how easy is your platform to use that a funeral director can implement this right in-house for a family?
Oh, it's so easy. It's so funny because, when somebody's enrolled with us, we sit through a quick training, and I always ask them, I say, what's your feedback on it? How do you feel about it?
Yeah.
It's something new, but our goal is to make it very easy. So that's what we always get. The answer is, it's easy. It's great. It's easy. And what we do is when an application is submitted, we have a decision for a family within 30 seconds or less.
Okay, great.
And the whole process, once they go forward, is less than 5 minutes for them to complete.
And funeral's not it's not a 9 to 5. It's not a things fall into line on a Monday morning. It's at need, and we're there in the same way. Our service is completely self-serve in that it's 24/7, 365 days a year. If a family has an unexpected loss on 7 to 9 p.m. on a Friday night, and they come into the funeral home in the dead of night, we can still be available to help that family out and allow them to go forward and make the arrangements that they need for the loved one that unfortunately has deceased. And the other thing that I think is really important to kind of touch on here is that, from my experience, as someone who's really new to the funeral industry, who's only been exposed to it for the last year, funeral directors, unusually for any other profession, they really go above and beyond to help their families. They really go above and beyond to serve their community. And whilst it's fantastic to see, a lot of the time they'll do so at the detriment of their own business.
Right.
And it's like that's doing a disservice to some extent to the customers that are going to come after, to the families that are going to come after that one. And sometimes we hear of funeral homes taking payments themselves per month. And that's challenging, because it's really putting a funeral director, someone who is a compassionate counselor, into the position of becoming a credit expert, becoming a collections expert, trying to make decisions as to who to lend money to, who not to. And one of the biggest benefits we found that really makes the solution easy is that it takes the funeral directors outside of difficult and challenging situations. There's a funeral director that I know very well who's helped us out a lot since the beginning, who goes by the name of Christian. He's an NFDA policy board member, and he said that was one of the biggest kind of ease of use things for him, in the sense that when a family previously came into his funeral home and they were in a tough spot, he would feel kind of obliged to maybe take a payment here and a payment there. But he said it never worked out well for him. And I don't think Elaine, when we were asking her, she never had it work out well for her.
Right.
He says, with us now, it's very simple. When they ask for a payment option, he gives them us. He's removed. He doesn't have to deal with anything else. He doesn't have to get into the weeds or anything. He can focus on being the compassionate counselor that he is and really serving the family, rather than getting into kind of all of this other administrative stuff that he shouldn't be doing. And finally, to that note, cremations are growing in this country. The baby boomers, as I keep getting told by the NFDA, they're kind of going away, and this new generation, mine included, and I guess yours, Ryan, we're not planners. We're not financial planners.
No, we're not
very much. I see an iPhone, I buy an iPhone.
Yes.
And that doesn't serve well for people when there's an unexpected loss, or when things have happened, when they maybe were just not expecting it to happen. And with us, it removes that forced positioning, in the sense that I know from Elaine, and I know from a lot of our funeral directors, a lot of families will take a cremation because they just can't afford a funeral.
Right.
And to give their loved one, the send-off, the celebration of their life that they truly would want, sometimes they want a funeral. And all we're trying to do is to enable families to get the services that they desire, simply, and enable funeral directors to focus on the family. It's as simple as that. It doesn't need to be more complex. We also allow distant family members to apply, remote family members to apply. And we've had instances where, in certain demographics, all of the family members want to have a part of the burden. All of them want to share in that cost. So they'll all take out a few $1,000 loan rather than putting the burden on one individual. And then when we're talking about ease of use, we work with so many funeral homes. We know what best practices are. We know what's helping a lot of funeral homes be successful. And so we can give that same kind of advice and tips to the funeral homes we work with, as well as helping them with maybe marketing support or other things, because there's such a variance in the small mom and pop funeral home that's been in the same family for 4 generations in the same village of 10,000, and the behemoths that I won't name that are in the industry have vertically integrated marketing support and administration, and everything is kind of is factored in for them from an operational point of view. And so we really want to help even the small guys who are in rural Kentucky or in any other kind of state in this country really realize the value of their services, and trying to help them build their business a little bit more.
I know that we serve funeral directors throughout the whole United States. So I always say I get humbled every day when I get to speak to a new funeral director, because like you said, I hear one story to another, success story of someone who was born into the industry, somebody who maybe took a leap of faith and went out on their own, or somebody who's straight out of mortuary school who's ready to go. So it's like in all those situations, even though the industry is so large, we all have the same need for the families.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, we want to be a resource.
That's awesome. So, okay, as people are watching this and our members are getting intrigued with what you're saying, and they're thinking about all these situations in their funeral home where if they had a financing option, it would have been more beneficial to family, how can they get connected to LendingUSA?
That's a great question. So what we're going to do is offer a link where the funeral directors who are watching can click. It's a one-step option for them to enroll. They fill out a one-page application. Once they submit a voided check, enrollment's complete, and we get you going.
Yeah, we've actually created a special landing page just for the Connecting Directors Network. It will be at LendingUSA.com/Connecting Directors.
Okay, and we'll show that URL.
So as Elaine said, you can go on there, fill out the one-page form, and send us a voided check. And we're free to use. There's no periodic fees. There's no monthly fees. There's no minimum expectations. We really just want to be a partner to the funeral industry. Okay.
Lastly, why do you think that the funeral industry needs financing options?
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of the crux of the issue. And I think for us, it's 2 fundamental things that we're helping. We're helping the families and we're helping the funeral directors. We'll empower the families to get the service that they deserve, and the funeral directors to realize the true value of their efforts. We remove the risk of taking payments monthly and directly, and we leave the funeral directors to focus on what really matters, being a compassionate counselor to the families in their time of need. Situationally, as you kind of touched on, there's 4 really basic situations that I think all of your network will have come across, probably even in the last month. That's a truly unexpected loss. It's unable to access the funds they probably have just in the time frame that they need it. It's a lack of a budget maybe sometimes, or simply that the family wants to make a monthly payment. And with LendingUSA, there's no sacrifice to the service. It gives the families exactly what they want. And a few extra dollars per month is a lot easier to accept than a few extra $1,000 today.
Right.
And for families at that difficult time, we want to just remove this as a concern.
Yeah, no, it's...
After 14 years of being in a funeral home, I would say that it's safe to say that the funeral industry is a very traditional industry.
Right.
And the only problem with that is that times are changing, things are different now, and you'll see the needs of our families are changing as well.
Yeah.
Today I think statistics say that 70% of Americans don't even have $1,000 saved.
Yeah.
Scary, and that's why we needed an option like this, and now we're available to the funeral industry.
And just to kind of end on that point, Ryan, every other industry in this country, whether we have ideological kind of agreement to it or not, every other industry offers and promotes heavily financing in their market.
Right.
You wouldn't ever see a car commercial without some sort of monthly offer for payment or interest-free promotion. And the same can be said for furniture and even cell phones. Every market has it.
Yeah.
And the funeral industry is really the last one that has large transactions that every family is inevitably going to have to deal with at some time in their lives that didn't have a financing option. So really, the way we see it is all we are is an additional option for these families. It's not something they have to do for every single time. There'll be plenty of families that will walk in with life insurance or will walk in with sufficient funds in their account, but we shouldn't be turning away anyone. And that's fundamentally the thing. And what we've seen is that when other industries will turn people away, the funeral industry won't. They'll still take them in and they will bend over backwards. And a lot of the time it's detrimental to their own business. And what we want to do is empower funeral directors to think compassionately for their families, but also think as businessmen for their own businesses, for their own families. At the end of the day, they need to take home the food to put on the table. And what we're trying to do is help them grow in a way that is sensitive to the families that are in need and in difficult times, but also is giving them a reasonable option with which to do so.
Sure.
I always say that funeral directors have the mad science of having to keep even, the compassion with still making a profit for their business.
Right. Still have to be a business person, right?
Exactly. And that's hard. And so I always say we want to be help to the families who need us and a resource to the funeral directors who want to partner with us.
That's exactly
awesome. It. Well, I greatly appreciate your guys' time. Thank you for your support of Connecting Directors and offering this to our members, and kudos on your endorsement from NFTA. Those don't get handed out very easily, so you must be doing something right. So that's fantastic. So one more time, for anyone that wants info, what was the landing page URL again that you've created?
It's lendingusa.com/connecting directors. And Ryan, I have to say thank you as well. You put on a great series of videos on YouTube. If anyone in your network hasn't seen them, you really need to go through Ryan's videos. They are thoroughly entertaining, and they have great information in there that's actionable for a lot of the funeral directors out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ryan. Cheers.